Hello and welcome to this episode of the No Gimmicks Just Sweat podcast. First, thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you're listening. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram at No Gimmicks Just Sweat. No Gimmicks Just Sweat was started to showcase people from all walks of life sharing their particular fitness journeys. Everyone has a different story, and everyone has a different reason behind their journey. Hopefully these stories will not only inspire you, but also help you aspire to heights you've never thought possible. Again, thank you for listening, and now, let's get it started. Hello and welcome to the No Gimmicks Just Sweat podcast. And today we have the one, the only Bianca Martin on the show. How are you doing, Bianca?
I am doing fantastic. I feel really honored with that intro. The one, the only. It's true.
Well, that's true. You are the one and the only. All right. So, to get started, let's kind of go. I'm going to throw out some icebreaker questions for you, okay?
Okay.
All right. Morning training or evening training?
Morning, absolutely.
All right. Cardio or strength?
Cardio.
Training by yourself or training with a group?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go group.
Okay. Running or cycling?
Running.
Really?
Yes. I feel like I need to expand on all of these answers. Keep going.
All right. 1 hour on a spin bike or 1 hour riding outside?
Outside for sure.
If you can go on a run or a ride with any celebrity, any athlete, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. That is a phenomenal question. I'm going to go on a run with Eliud Kipchoge, the man who broke the 2-hour marathon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last one. Your dream location to go for a run or a ride, anywhere in the world.
Dream ride is probably to do the Tour de France, but just, on my own, on my own time.
Yeah, at your own pace, on your own time.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get started by hearing your story. When I say your story, think of yourself as a superhero. You're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So what's your origin? How did you become the person that you are today?
Well, it all started on a gloomy day. So, I guess, if we want to take it back to origin, it comes from your lineage, your grandparents, your parents, and I am the granddaughter of a Buffalo Soldier, which is a member of an all-black regiment in World War II. I am the daughter of a 2-time Olympic cyclist, 64 and 68, and he coached the 72 team as well. That's my father. And my mother won the 84 and 85 national championships in cycling as well. So there is fight, there is grit, there is athletics, there is overcoming adversity, just I feel in my blood. So from there, I was born in Florida. We lived there till I was about 10 years old, and then we moved out to Oregon. I tried virtually every sport before I landed on running in high school. I did basketball, soccer, horseback riding, ballet, swimming, tennis here and there. So, it was really, sport is definitely in my blood, and it's something that I knew I would always do because of my parents. Not that they ever pushed anything, but it was one of those things where, I knew that I could be good if I put my mind to it because of them. And so running became a thing for me in early high school. So I was really scared I wasn't going to make the soccer team. And my mom had set up all these soccer camps over the summer going into my freshman year. And so once I decided I wasn't going to make the team, and that was really a self-limitation that I put onto myself. No one told me I wasn't going to make the soccer team. I probably would have made the soccer team, to be honest with you. But I'm glad it all worked out this way, because I quit soccer and she said, okay, you need to find something to do. I don't care what it is. Find an activity. You're not just going to sit at home all summer and do nothing. So a friend up the street of mine, she was doing cross country. And I said, okay, I'm just going to do it during the summer, right? I'm not going to do it when school starts. I'm just going to go out and please mom. And then, just start my high school fresh and no sports. And it's kind of funny that I even went to that, place. So I was like, I'm not going to do sports in high school. And then I get out there and, it took a while, probably 2 months or so. And then I'm running, up with the varsity girls, and I'm running some pretty decent workouts, and I'm really enjoying it. And every run, I don't feel like I'm going to die anymore. And I said, okay, wait, this could be a thing. This could be kind of fun. And, I realized that with all of the other sports I had done, I was best at the running portion of them, or the endurance portion of them. I was always very fit in general, and I could out sprint anybody on my soccer team. I could, hit a fast break on the basketball court, but then I'd miss the goal and I'd miss the layup. So the hand-eye coordination and foot-eye coordination was not a strong suit over here. So I said, you know what? Let's just do the common thing amongst those, which was running. So, the first run I ever went on that summer was 15 minutes. We went to a place called Circle Park and back, which was right by the high school. And I really thought I was going to die. It was like the hardest thing I'd ever done, because I had never just gone for a run, right? It was always using running for a purpose in soccer, in basketball, in whatever other things I was doing, and tag, with kids at school, flag football.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, when you ask your body to just straight up run for 15 minutes, it is a shock. And, it took consistency. And, I had a lot of coaching changes in high school. So it was difficult for me to put back-to-back years together of really good training, because it was always changing. And then my coach, my senior year, came in, my new coach, and his wife was running for Nike at the time. And that really was the first intro to professional running that I'd ever seen. Her name's Amy Bagley. His name's Andrew Bagley. And she ran for Alberto Salazar at Nike before he was blacklisted.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And so, I saw a lot through her, and she ended up making an Olympic team that same year, that 2008. And it was one of those things where it kind of opened my eyes, and I just had stars in them. And I was like, okay, wait, like I want to do this. I really want to do this. And I had popped some times, earned myself a scholarship, and ended up out at the University of New Mexico down in Albuquerque. Ran there for 2 years, and throughout my high school career, I was injured a lot, on and off. A lot of overuse things. Body just didn't love the impact of running, as I know a lot of people have ran into. Running is difficult. It's a difficult sport on the body. And when I got hurt in New Mexico, I had a knee issue that popped up. My coach just kind of forgot about me, honestly. And, we don't need to name names. He's a great guy, but it was one of those things where I was just, sent to the training room and told to come back when I was better. Right. And it was really hard for me to go from being in this team atmosphere to all of a sudden having, to be the individual in the gym alone on the bike, cross training. And that's really where cycling came in for me in its very early stages, because every time I got injured, I'd get on the bike every single time. It's non-impact, wouldn't hurt the things that, I had going on. And I ended up transferring from New Mexico, came back to Portland State here in Oregon, started working out with my old coach again, the one from high school, Andrew, and really just knew that his training works. He knows what he's doing, and I wanted to stick with him as long as I could, even potentially thinking about, could I do this after college kind of thing. So my senior year, at Portland State. I had ran as an individual for a long time, which is why when you asked me individual or group training, I struggle with it because I've trained as an individual for years on and off, particularly with injuries. It happens. So it's my senior year, and I'm up at University of Washington running an indoor race. And the coach from Portland State, now mind you, I attended Portland State. I was running by myself, just unattached at these meets. Coach at Portland State comes up to me and he's like, so you go to my school, you're running faster than anyone I have on the team, and yet you're not on the team. What is happening here? Something is off. So on the spot, in person, he offered me a full ride scholarship.
Oh, wow.
He said, I know you've only got one semester left, but I'm going to have it fully paid for. You don't have to come to practice. Just show up to meets in a jersey that says Portland State and we're good to go. And I said, sign me up. Where's the paperwork?
Right.
So my senior year at Portland State was just like the dream season. It was absolutely incredible. I PR'd in literally every single event that I ran, from the 400 up to the 5K. It's 400, 800, 3K, 1500, mile, 5K, every single one of those events. I ran my fastest times I had ever run. And mind you, that was coming off of a knee surgery. I'd had knee surgery in 2012. Yeah. I had knee surgery, my first knee surgery in 2012. The injury issue that really led me to come back to Portland was a birth defect, we found out. So I have extra pieces of tissue, or had, in my knees. It's called plica band syndrome, PLICA, plica band. And apparently everyone has these pieces of tissue in their knees when they're growing and developing in the womb, and then they kind of go away as you grow. And for whatever reason, in certain people, they stick around. So I had 3 of them in my right knee, we found out, and then 2 big ones in my left side. And I got through my senior season after surgery on the right. Took a long time to come back, but I did it. And then immediately after I finished that season, I made it to West Regionals, had some issues with the left knee at that race, and ended up getting surgery a month later on my left side. So 2 big knee surgeries, and, I ended up moving to Connecticut. My coaches got jobs at the University of Connecticut, coaching there, went out. More injuries. I mean, you name it, I've had it at this point. I consider myself to be an unlicensed physical therapist. If you have any ailments, let me know, and I can probably help you. So a lot of injuries there, including I tore my IT band in a workout, which was just, maybe 5 months of rehab. It was a long time. And over the course of when we were in Connecticut, no one really loved it, to be honest with you. Nothing about the University of Connecticut, but like Connecticut as a state. It wasn't really anyone's favorite. It's pretty rural. There's just not a lot going on. It's cold in the winter. It's hot and sticky in the summer. It's just, so my coaches got an opportunity to go to Atlanta and coach at the Atlanta Track Club for an Olympic development team that they didn't have an elite team at the time. This was in, 2014, late 2014, I think. And so we moved to Atlanta, and I fell in love with the city, and I was there for almost 6 years. And once we moved, just injuries continued to happen, whether it was a bulging disc in my back or, really bad Achilles tendonitis, or, I went to a doctor and they were like, you're almost bone on bone in your knees at this point. Like the cartilage is just wearing down. It was just one thing after another after another. And so I made the really difficult decision to transition out of running and, pursue something else. I'm the kind of person that I'm always pushing, always trying to find something new and see what I can do with my body while I can, right? Because there is a finite amount of time that we can really push ourselves to our absolute limit as far as athletics are concerned. And so that's when cycling came in. And it seems silly that it took, 20 something years of my life to figure out that I might be decent at cycling. You know, my dad's an Olympian, my mom's a national champion, like you would think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's funny too, is obviously my parents were very excited, you know, they were very supportive, but at the same time they said, all right, cycling is a really expensive sport. You know, running, you need what, $120 pair of shoes, and cycling, you're going to have like a $6,000 bike, right? Like it's just a little different. So they were on board, but didn't want to get me anything fancy to start, just in case I decided I didn't want to do it. So my first road bike was a 1985 steel frame Raleigh with shifters on the down tube.
Oh, what?
Like, yes, we're talking vintage at its finest. And I would take that thing out on 50-mile rides. Like I am reaching down I'm taking my hand off the handlebars, reaching down, shifting. And you know, I think that year while I was using that bike and just training, I wasn't racing yet, really kind of put me in a good spot, because when you're lugging around, you know, this very heavy bike. I mean, when I finally got a nice like carbon fiber bike, it was hard for me to ride because it was so light and I wasn't used to it. My bike handling skills were like kind of crazy. So, yeah, you know, cycling, my first race, I came out and I won. Not that the field was incredible. You know, you start as a female cyclist in Cat 4. So you're racing with a lot of people who also haven't raced before. So, you know, yes, I won, but I think there was like a 12-year-old girl in the race also. So let's not give me too much credit. But, you know, I realized at that point, I was like, okay, like you're decent at this, you know, like this is something you could do. And I made it through 2 full seasons without any major crashes. You know, crashes happen in cycling, of course. And the start of my 3rd season, I had made it all the way up to Cat 2 by that point. And I was really thinking to myself, you know what, like this is my season. I'm gonna make it to Cat 1. I'm gonna get noticed this season. I'm gonna get offers from some teams. And we were out at the Birmingham, Alabama Hammerfest Criterium. Made it about 3/4 of the way through that race, and a girl turned a little bit too wide, nowhere to go but straight into me, and I went down and I broke my collarbone. And that was March of 2019. And without going into all of the gory medical details, feel free to ask about them later. But I have had 3 surgeries at this point related to that crash. And I am currently 7 weeks out from my most recent one. So I have not come back to cycling since March of 2019, which is crazy. I miss it. I've had a couple of moments where I've been able to get back out on the bike here and there, but for the most part, I've been confined to a stationary bike through this period of time. I miss it. I still see myself becoming a pro. I know it's going to take a lot at this point. I'm 30 years old, not a spring chicken, but I'm still pushing, still dreaming. It's all you can do at the end of the day. So that's where we're at.
Okay. So
18 minutes later.
Hey, that's great. But so you sound like you're still like you have that desire to get back on the bike and to say, hey, okay, this was just a setback. And you know, they say, you know, a setback is just, you know, the beginning of an awesome comeback. So you're looking to kind of get that back going. So
absolutely.
So how far out do you think you are before you're able to get back out?
You know, if we were doing this interview on Monday, I'd have a better answer for you. I have physical therapy tomorrow, and that is my next question. I'm like, okay, when am I cleared? When am I cleared?
Right.
You know, I love what you said about a setback being the setup for a comeback. And, you know, I've been called the comeback queen since freshman year of high school because I have had, I mean, my first day of track practice, I rolled my ankle and I couldn't run for like 3 weeks. Like,
Oh,
I
wow,
mean,
yeah.
like, I'm just that girl. But every time I have had a setback, I have come back stronger and better than before. And I'm so confident in my ability to do that because I've had to over and over and over again. So I know that when I am allowed to get on the bike, whether it's, another month or 2 months, whatever it may be, I'm going to kill it because that's just what I do. That's just in my nature. And I won't settle for anything less than giving my best. One of my favorite quotes is from Steve Prefontaine, a phenomenal runner who unfortunately passed away at the young age of 24. And he said, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. To give
That's so
anything
true.
less than your best is to sacrifice the gift. And so I believe, we're all given these gifts, whether it's the gift of gab, the gift of, being an incredible accountant, the gift of athletic ability, the gift to inspire. And if you're not using those gifts, what a waste.
Yes.
What a waste. And you need to be trying your best every single day, whatever that looks like for you. Coming off surgery, my best was like moving my arm 2 inches left and right. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
But I'm there and I'm doing it. And if you tell me I'm going to move my arm 2 inches, I'm going to move my arm 2 inches. I'm not going to go 1.75 inches. I'm going 2 inches today. And then you tell me in a week that you can move your arm 3 inches. Okay, great. Let's do that. So yeah, I have PT tomorrow morning. I'm really hoping that I get the go ahead to do a little bit of riding. The most recent thing that happened with the shoulder was a labrum tear, related to all the other things that have gone on with the shoulder collarbone area. And so I don't know if I have the strength right now to hold myself on the bars. I think I could probably do a stationary bike with the handlebars raised up a bit so it's not, so much weight.
Right.
So we will see what he says, but I am excited. Whenever it is, you best believe I'm going to be out there.
And I'm going to be watching.
Yes.
I'm going to be watching. So, given the setback you've had, how have you been handling training? Or, have you been doing any type of training? Obviously you can't do a lot or do much, but have you been staying active?
Absolutely. So with any injury, outside of, some incredible trauma that puts you, bed rested kind of thing, there's typically always something you can do. And I think it's really important for people to remember that, okay, maybe, I broke my ankle and my foot's in a boot, but guess what? My upper body is fully able right now. So can I still go to the gym and do some core work? Can I still go to the gym and do some, upper body strengthening? Can I still do a squat? Maybe I put, my heel up on a plate and that helps even out the one foot in the boot and the other side. And now I can maybe do some squats as long as my PT says it's okay. So throughout all of these things, I've gotten real creative and I have always found things that I can do. So without pushing, too hard and doing things that I shouldn't be and, always PT approved. With all the shoulder stuff, I've definitely found ways to use my legs. Sit upright on the bike without using the handlebars is always an option. It's been kind of rocky, right? Because I'll get into these grooves where I start getting really fit and then something else happens. And then I start getting really fit again and then something else happens. So it's really about trying to get as much consistency with training as possible. Any athlete will tell you, being able to put in month over month over month without too many big setbacks or, forced time off from injury is really the way to, hitting those PRs and hitting good times and being competitive. So I'm in a point right now where I can run. So, that is my first love. I know you were surprised by my cycling running answer. And so I can run now today, this morning. I'm still doing a little bit of walk jogging. I only got approval to run 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago now. So I'm up to 5 minutes of running, 2 minutes of walking. I did 5 rounds of that today. So 25 minutes total of running and felt great, So I'm getting close to the point where I can probably put, a mile or two back to back, but trying to take it as slow and as steady as possible. given my history with injuries, it's best for me to be real slow and steady as opposed to try and rush that fitness, for sure.
Right. So probably last year dealing with the pandemic, with you coming back from your injury and stuff, that actually was kind of a positive thing for you.
It really was. And I hate to say that because I know it's just been like the absolute worst for so many people.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the fact that there was no races really going on, at least out here in Oregon, I had my second surgery, shoulder related, in February of last year. So right before everything got shut down, kind of in middle of March. And so I was coming off of that one, and then things sort of started opening again. And in October is when I dislocated the shoulder and tore the labrum. And so then I had surgery again in February. So, almost a year apart. But again, things are still shut down. It's like, unless I was, already on a pro team and was able to like go race in Europe or something, it's been really nice because I don't feel rushed.
Right.
And I think that a lot of athletes, particularly at an elite level, if this is your paycheck, people rush back from injury and they either re-injure themselves or, they're pushing through pain that they shouldn't. They're going to end up with a long-term chronic issue because, all they were doing is trying to make that living through their sport. And I'm not in a position to do that right now. So it's a blessing. Of course, I wish I was a professional, but I have that luxury right now being in the position that I am to take my time and, really come up with the most realistic comeback plan for myself that is not on anybody else's time. It's not on anybody else's dollar. So that's been really nice, for sure.
Okay. So let's talk about cycling for a moment. Can you explain what type of cycling you do as far as, in other words, like what is a crit?
Yes. So cycling, there's a lot of different types of racing. You have road racing and you have track racing. Track does not look like track as far as running is concerned. You do that on what's called a velodrome, which is typically an indoor facility. They do have outdoors as well, and it's a banked, sloped surface. There is one in Atlanta called the Dick Lane Velodrome, if anyone wants to Google it. And so, yeah, there's track cycling, and then road cycling has a bunch of different types of racing as well. You could have a criterium, which was what I was saying earlier I crashed in. That is typically loops around city blocks, most likely. And those are typically done for time. So you would do, a 45-minute criterium. And it seems weird to do a race for time because you're like, wouldn't everybody end at the same time? What they do is after probably 3/4 of the way through, they start averaging how long it's taken you to do each lap. And then eventually when you're getting close to the 45-minute mark or the hour mark or however long it is, they'll put a lap counter on it. So you've been going for, 41 minutes and now they say, okay, 3 laps to go. And then it becomes a lap race at that point. You can do a straight up road race, which is what probably most people are familiar with. Think Tour de France. You do stage races where you have multiple day over day. There's also time trials, which is just you versus the clock. You may have seen in the Tour de France, they do team time trials. So it's typically 4 to 6 riders and they, all have to finish at the same time together. So there's a bunch of different kind of ways to bake that cake. And as far as what I think I'm best at, it would definitely be the criterium space because those are typically slightly shorter races. So, usually for women, they're capped at about an hour. I've seen a few go maybe 80 minutes. And that for me, coming from running, I was a middle distance runner. I ran the 800, the mile, the 3K. Those were my best events. Criteriums are almost like middle distance, equivalent in cycling. So, yeah.
Okay. And I know you mentioned it earlier as you were talking, but it's also broken down into categories.
Yes.
I guess that's your ranking or what level you perform at.
So cycling is very different from running in that aspect where it's not just time based. So for instance, if you run a 4-minute mile as a guy, everybody knows you run a 4-minute mile, and that 4-minute mile as a qualifier will get you into certain races and certain fields of people from a professional standpoint, because you have this timestamp. Because cycling is done, all over different courses, and, track cycling is a little bit different, but speaking about road cycling here, there's not a time standard that you could really put everyone in a ranking system and say, okay, you're here and you're good enough to do this. So they start with these categories, and I believe men's go down to category 5 because there's just simply more men in cycling in general. Women's are starting at category 4. And the way that you move up in ranking is by placing in your races and earning points. So for instance, if you are first place in a race, you'll get a certain amount of points. If you are second, you'll get a certain amount of points. And the field, meaning the size of the race, the amount of people in the race, matters in terms of those points as well. So you get more points for winning a race of 100 people than you do for winning a race of 10. And so they have certain point values that you have to hit in order to what we call cat up, to category up. And you have to reach out to USA Cycling and basically plead your case. So you say, okay, here's my rankings, here's what I have done, here's the amount of points that I've gotten. And they will also automatically cat up some people as well. So if there's, somebody out there who's just winning everything, but they're staying in a lower category because they just want to keep winning. Because obviously the higher up you go in category, the more competitive,
right.
better people are in it, right? So there are some people who, like you'll see them out there, and it's like, gosh, they really should not be in Cat 3 anymore. Like they just, somebody needs to push them. And so USA Cycling will step in those instances too. But for the most part, people really want to cat up. And so, they are trying to get themselves into strategic races so they know, okay, I have a chance of getting in the top 10 here to earn some points. And then, once you hit Cat 2, they typically run Cat 1 and Cat 2 together in races. And so that's why I mentioned earlier, I was really excited going into my first season as a Cat 2 because I was like, okay, I'm going to get noticed because this is where the pro teams are. These are where the
right,
big dogs
right.
are. And so that would have been a situation for me had that season, come fully to fruition, that I could have been, noticed if I placed well in some of these bigger events.
Okay. That's actually the best explanation I've ever heard for that.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right. Here's one question that might touch a nerve. Women in the Tour de France. Why? Why not?
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
It's it's what I'm sorry, but it's just one of those things that every year when I sit down and watch it, I'm like, why are there no women in this race?
So it's my understanding that they have started a women's, I'm not going to call it the Tour de France because it's not. It's not the same exact course. It's not the same distance. But they do have this kind of sort of race that they do before the Tour de France. And I believe they started it a few years ago. But yeah, I mean, this goes back to gender inequality in general, right? Just as an overarching umbrella theme, women are paid less. Women are given less sponsorships. Women are given less opportunities. Women are seen as the weaker sex. It's why women in college run a 6K when men run an 8 or a 10K for their race. And there's just no equality across the board in any sport. It's the big controversy of the women's Final Four at March Madness,
Yes.
you know, and they weren't given a gym facility. I mean, what is this, right? Like, it is so deeply ingrained in our society that women are simply the lesser sex, and you see it infiltrate in so many ways. There was a race that I did. Oh, I'm going to forget the name of it. If you have show notes, I'll try and find the name of it, and maybe you could put it in there just to like call them out specifically, because I was so thrilled when I found out the way that they were doing their race. The distances were the same for men and women. This was a cycling race. And B, the prize money was the same for men and women. And I know it seems silly that you would pay people differently to win a race, but across the board in cycling, I would say 90% of the time, the men's prize purse is always bigger than the women's. Doesn't matter, like across the board. So, you know, are women capable of doing the Tour de France? Yes. No questions asked.
Right.
Should there be a women's Tour de France? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No questions asked. Are the vast majority of the decision makers in USA Cycling, in the International Cycling Federation, in sport in general, men? Yes. And I believe that until that changes, then you're not going to have a trickle-down effect that's going to be positive for women, because unfortunately, those men just don't see it the same way as, you know, a female would come in and influence that decision making.
Right. And, you know, again, it's one of those things you know, because, you know, me being in multi-sport, you know, seeing, you know, women triathletes, women that are doing duathlons and other multi-sport events, I'm like, they're just as capable and better than some of the men out here.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. One thing that's cool in cycling, at least at the lower levels, I know sometimes they do it at a higher level, but typically less, is they'll let the Cat 3 women or the Cat 2 women, if they want to, race with the Cat 3-4 men. And that is simply because obviously the competition is better. They're not going to, you know, put out prize money in the same way when you have a woman riding in the men's events. But my mom, I mean, even in the 80s, she used to ride in all the men's events, and she said those were some of the best races she ever did. So, you know, I mean, it is one of those things where if all else is equal and women are truly given the opportunity in a sport that is not based on pure natural brute strength, right? Think about weightlifting. A woman is typically just based off of muscle mass alone, not going to be able to lift as much as a man, you know, who's the same height and weight as her. That's just biological. But in a sport like cycling, where it's endurance based, it's strategic, I mean, absolutely give us a chance and we will blow y'all out of the water.
And I would love to see it. I would
absolutely
love to see it.
You know, men get extra competitive when women are in the races too, and I think it might be good for everyone. A lot of y'all do. I'm not gonna generalize, but a lot of y'all do.
All right, so let's kind of go back a little bit and let's talk about, you know, your proudest moment as an athlete, as well as your biggest mistake or your worst moment as an athlete.
Oh gosh. Proudest moment, I would probably say, was making the US Championships in 2013 for running. I qualified for the Indoor National Championships in the mile. I ran 4:44, which to the general population sounds really fast. And I will give myself that credit. 4:44 in the mile. It's not slow, of course. That being said, to, you know, humble myself as well, on the grand scheme of things, 4:44 is a decent professional time. It's not winning, too many races. So we'll just kind of qualify it that way. But that being said, honestly, one of my worst moments was surrounding that exact same situation because I made the national championships. It was down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was so excited because obviously I went to school there and, you know, friends were going to come and watch. And that was coming off of that first knee surgery, like I had mentioned. And the second one, you know, was on the horizon. And I had issues in Albuquerque with the knees. It took 3.5 years to diagnose what was wrong with my knee to begin with. But part of what didn't help was being up at altitude and just the pressure changes, and, you know, your body can kind of swell a little bit, and that never helped the knee problem that was already pre-existing. So the day before the race, I'm out on an easy run, just kind of what we call a shakeout, and I started to feel my left knee. And I woke up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, and I realized that my knee was incredibly swollen. And 2 laps into the race the next day, it buckled. And I knew that if I didn't stop then, I was going to go down, and I was probably going to take someone else with me. And that was not worth it for anyone. So I dropped out of that race, and it is the only national championship I ever ended up making. And it still hurts, you know. I know it was the right call. I did end up having surgery a couple of months after that. You know, and it was really, it was for myself, but it was also, again, you know, I knew that we were so tightly packed that knee was going to give out because it already had the once, and I was going to go down, and I was going to take somebody else with me, and I couldn't do that to someone else in that race, you know? So that was really tough, you know? It's hard to, you know, I think I can count on maybe one hand, maybe 3 times the amount of times I've dropped out of a race. And it's a tough pill to swallow as an athlete, for sure.
Yeah. So what keeps you going daily? What's your inspiration?
You know, I feel like I've been asked this question before, and I think it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted. I think my whole life, being the daughter of elite athletes, I know I can do it just from go. Like, I have a baseline, I have a pedigree that says you should probably be good at this. And I have been reaching my whole athletic career for a potential that I don't feel I have had the opportunity to hit yet. And that's because of injury. That's because of really mostly injury. Let's call a spade a spade. It's injury. So what's hard is, you know, I do know, as I mentioned earlier, there is a finite amount of time that I can do this and still, you know, hit PRs. That being said, you know, the 2016 winner of the time trial for cycling at the Olympics, she was 44 years old.
Wow.
44, yes. Has a 10-year-old son. I mean, that gives me so much hope that, you know, that finite amount of time I keep mentioning is actually a little bit bigger of a window than I thought.
Right.
Right? And that's assuming that I can get my ish together and stop getting hurt. And if I can do that, I know that the sky is the limit. And so whether or not I end up hitting what I know I'm capable of just in my physical body, as long as, going back to that Steve Prefontaine quote, I have done my best at the end of the day, even if I don't hit it, then I've still won. And I've learned so much along the way in trying to reach for that potential that I know is there, that I wouldn't trade it for the world, you know, even if it never happens. But I'm telling you, Eric, I have this gut feeling that I am still gonna do something incredible in sport. I don't know what
You
it
are.
is. And I don't know what sport it is. It might not be cycling. It might be the
See,
duathlon. Who knows?
come on over, come over to the dark side.
No, but yeah, I've just been following a feeling my whole life, and we'll see where
Okay.
it takes me.
So, what message or what piece of advice would you give someone who wanted to start cycling?
Hmm. I would say that bike handling is the absolute most important thing that you could ever learn. Like good bike handling skills, and you're gonna learn that by going out with either a group that you trust and or one other person that's been doing it for a long time that can show you the ropes. My dad has a friend named Charlie Seward who is just this incredible human. He's got to be in his late 60s, early 70s at this point. Just a powerhouse cyclist. I mean, when I tell you, this man is so strong. And he took me out to Stone Mountain when I was first learning on that little steel frame Raleigh, and he just word vomited all over me. I mean, every tiny little piece of advice. He'd ride his bike real close to me so I'd get comfortable being in a group setting. You know, he's like, once you get into a race, you're going to be, you know, centimeters away from other people and handlebars. I blame poor bike handling skills on my crash, not myself. The girl who ran into me, because it's called holding your line through a turn, which means if you commit to a certain angle on the turn, you stay in that line. You hold your line through. And so that, you know, is a situation where if you are those centimeters apart and you're in a pack of 50, 60 people, which happens, and that race probably had 45 to 50, maybe 60 women, um, you're
Right.
safe, right? And she did not hold her line, and she kept going wide, and we were all turning a little bit more narrow, and that's, you know, the reason I ended up going down. So bike handling, you know, is very, very, very important, and I would argue, you know, can get you out of sticky situations because you'll have poor bike handlers around you. Sometimes, you know, you can't do anything about it, but yeah, that's probably the most important. So get you a mentor, and I would say that across the board for any sport really. But there are a lot of little tiny ins and outs with cycling. It's not about your gear, it's not about your Garmin, it's not about, you know, the $8,000 carbon fiber bike that Joe Schmo over there's got. Is about the person riding that vehicle. It is about the engine, and yeah, that would be my advice.
So riding in my living room on Zwift is not a good idea.
It's not going to teach you any bike handling skills. It's going to get you some competition, though. It's going to get you strong. I do not discount the trainer. Let me tell you, I mean, you can get a phenomenal
Oh yeah,
workout on a stationary
I
bike.
have my own. I have a trainer at home that I use during the winter time.
I love
So,
it.
all right. So, how do you want to be remembered as an athlete?
You know, just as someone who never gave up. I mean, no matter what was going on, right? I mean, I have the words potential is greater than pain written permanently in
Yes.
a tattoo form on my hand. Um, I wrote those words on my hand the day I crashed. It was supposed to be my mantra for the entire season. I don't remember why or how I came up with it, but I like alliterations, and it felt right. It fit. I wanted it on my hand so that during the race I could see it. I could look down and see those words. So I wrote it in permanent pen, and then, you know, what do you know? Several hours later, I'm on the floor or I'm on the ground with my collarbone broken in half. And these words have carried me through over and over and over again. I wish I had had them earlier in my athletic career because, you know, I used to approach injury. It was just devastating. I mean, I would just crawl into this hole when I would get injured in my earlier years of athletics. And over time, I've learned to take a bit more pragmatic approach to it. And coming back to this phrase, potential is greater than pain, just gives me so much comfort, because I remember all of the things that I am capable of doing. And no matter what pain I'm going through, whether it be physical with these injuries or mental or emotional or anything going on in my life, that potential will always be there. And I will always strive for it no matter what. And again, I may not hit it, right? But it is that North Star that I'm always, always, always striving for. And I think anyone that has ever trained with me or been coached by me knows that I demand excellence from myself, and I demand excellence from those around me. So it's one of those things that, I'm constantly reaching, I'm constantly pushing, I'm constantly learning. And I want to be remembered as someone who just never, ever, ever gave up.
Awesome. So, what is a non-athletic thing or fact about you that no one knows?
Great question. I love antiques.
Oh, okay.
So I started watching Antiques Roadshow on public broadcasting, probably in middle school. And I just fell in love with like old things. And so over the years, I have a couple of like antique suitcases that I use as kind of decorative things in my bedroom. And yeah, I don't know what it is. There's just this like nostalgia for old things that are made really, really well. I think about all the stuff that I have in my life right now, material things. I'm like, is this going to be around in 70 years? This piece of plastic?
Right.
Probably not. But this leather bound, beautiful, suitcase from 1934, like, yeah, it's still here. I have an antique typewriter in my room.
Wow.
So I'm an old soul. I've always been an old soul. And yeah, so I love antiques.
Okay. All right, as we come to a close, what's next for you?
Yes.
What are you working on now? What's going on? What's coming up?
Definitely. I have really used this downtime coming off of my most recent surgery to its absolute fullest. And I have started to create a mindset recovery program for injured athletes. I have learned so much over the years of going through, injury after injury after injury, and having to come back, having to have a new starting point, having to overcome the fear of re-injury, having to deal with the depression of not being able to do your sport, going through the identity crisis of who am I if I'm not a runner, if I can't ride and I'm not a cyclist, what's left? And I know that these are universal themes that so many athletes deal with. And unfortunately, there just aren't many, if any, resources for them to go through it and help them deal with these things. There's one book, literally one.
Really?
It's called Bounce Back. And it's a kind of mindset thing. But the fact that it's a book is in and of itself a barrier for people. I know a lot of athletes who just simply aren't going to read a book to help them with their injury. So the program I'm putting together is a combination of, journaling practices, of motivational speeches, of what I'm calling the comeback soundtrack, meaning, these are songs that have really helped, interviews with other athletes who have gone through it, sharing their stories, as well as some mindfulness and breath work and meditation through a friend of mine, Taryn Burns, who is a yoga instructor. And I'm really, really excited about it. I'm about 3/4 of the way done with it at this point. I'm hoping to offer it to schools as sort of a program that they could purchase and be available to any and all of their athletes if and when they get injured. I'd really like to partner with some physical therapy places, and again, just fill this gap, just give people a resource and a support system for when they're going through injury. It hopefully isn't, a long period of time that they have to deal with it. But, for myself, I mean, March 19th of 2019 changed everything, and it's been 3 years. It's been 3 years of dealing with stuff. So I really want to fill that gap for people and just give them something that can be a light for them during those dark periods of time. I'm calling it the Comeback Academy.
Sweet.
Yes.
Well, Bianca, thank you for being on the show today.
You are so welcome. This was fantastic. You had wonderful questions. I loved it. Real head turners.
If anyone wants to get in contact with you, how can they do that?
Yes, I am on Instagram at run, RUN this, THISB, run this B. And my website is not live quite yet, but eventually, once this program launches, they can go to www.comebackqueenbee.com.
Okay. Again, Bianca Martin, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Have a wonderful rest of your day, okay? All right, thanks.
You as well.
Bye.
Bye.
And that's it for this episode of No Gimmicks, Just Sweat. I really hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for your support, and until next time, keep crushing your goals.